I, for the longest time, wanted to just sit down and play through all my games all the way through at least once. I decided to dedicate a channel for this journey, so hopefully you enjoy it as I go down my bucket list of games. To get started, I put all my games on a wheel and then spun it. The first game I got to start off was Postal 2. At the time, this seemed like an amazing start. After some thinking, I've decided I'm going to do this sort of like a documentary or a donkey video kind of. First I'm going to go over how my playthrough went from start to finish. Then I'm going to go over what I did not like about the game, then what I did like about the game, and give it a review out of 10. After that, I'll slap it on a tier list or something. With everything out of the way, if you'd join me as I take down my first game on my bucket list, Postal 2. Technically Postal squared, given how they phrased the title. Don't worry about it.
Shut up, moron! What, asshole? You keep talking. I'll keep ignoring you. Fuck you, buddy! No one's impressed. Here's one for your mother! Ow!
Christ, it's as hot as the devil's rectum in here. When did we move to hell?
You were the one who insisted on relocating for that stupid video game job.
Yeah, well, crack doesn't by itself, you know. Why isn't the AC on? Broken.
When you're done screwing around, I made a list of errands for you on the fridge.
Jesus, woman. Where's the milk?
It's on the damn list.
Don't put you on a damn list.
And don't forget my rocky road.
Yeah, whatever. Let me guess.
After a pretty amazing intro sequence, I grab my company-provided meth and shovel and be on my way. I'd like to mention right now the control scheme took a bit to get used to. It's one of those control schemes where you feel like you're familiar with it, but it's still unique enough that you just fuck up a lot. An example of this is that the game technically auto-interacts with a lot of things that you need to interact with. You don't need to press a button, but I'm used to pressing E to interact with stuff. So I'm constantly sitting there clicking E and I'm opening my status menu, seeing all my stats over and over again. Eventually I kind of figured out the control scheme, and then I went ahead and got onto the first thing on my list, which was grab my check. So after robbing my neighbor's shed for his dog treats and screaming verbal threats at him from his
Get down
backyard,
if you don't want to die. Get the fuck down.
I decided to go introduce myself to the local wildlife. After prison shanking some random passerbys and staring at my wang in the mirror, I eventually rampaged my way all the way to my work. I saw at the front door of my work people exercising their First Amendment right about my job. I scooted on by, went up to the office, got fired, and got a check. Wait a minute, got fired? Oh, well, Soon the peaceful protest outside got not so peaceful, and they decided to run in with guns. Realizing that they were after the company itself and not me, I decided to pull a good old-fashioned Tobey Maguire and let the company handle their own problems. Next on my list was some good old-fashioned grocery shopping. I quickly made it to the store I was supposed to go to, and I quickly realized just how outdated the game is.
God, what's that awful stench? Did someone slaughter a goat in here? No, seriously, I want to know.
Bring your money to me over here, Pedro, and what you want. This is not the standard.
Racial stereotypes aside, I think this level is a great representation of how levels are going to play out from here on out. After grabbing the milk, you quickly realize, and especially because you're told by the game, that you don't have to pay for the milk. You can just leave. Which, if you decide to just leave, prompts the store owner to close the door on you. The store owner then goes hostile, and you're forced to go through the entire building and firefight pretty much anyone inside. I think this was a great lesson. The firefight wasn't too hard, it wasn't too much of a punishment for deciding to go the hard way, and it lets the player know what to expect going forward. The easy way or the hard way. The hard way wasn't too hard, it was just more racist than anything. And hey, I even got crack out of it, so always a win. After all that was said and done, I decided to go do my last chore on the list, which was cash in my check. After accidentally walking through the police station and getting into the world's biggest firefight known to man, I walked into the bank with a stolen uniform and a check to cash. This is where the game teaches you its second lesson. It's going to encourage you to take the hard way. Pause. What I mean by that is that the game's going to constantly put these ungodly lines in front of you and force you to wait. Of course, you're going to try to promptly kill all the NPCs, which in turn turns them all hostile, including the one you needed. After leaving nothing but charred corpses in my wake, I quickly realized that the only way I'm going to get this mission done is by going to the very back of the bank, where the safe is. After taking a very generous loan from the bank, I was quickly surrounded by police and put into another gunfight. After everything was said and done, I decided to head on home.
Did you go by work?
Yeah, apparently I'm on sabbatical or something.
Well, good. Maybe you can get a few more things done for me.
I'm gonna do a few things to you.
What was that?
Nothing, dear. Enjoy your milk.
After a quick intro sequence, you're then put on to your second day, Tuesday. This day alone is why this game is so memorable. It's why you see a ton of YouTubers and whatnot play it, because this is the day you get the petition. One of the most legendary missions in Postal 2. It showcases everything good about the game, from the hilarious NPC interactions to the spontaneous combat. Tuesday is where the game shines the most. And if you don't believe me, let's go ahead and go over what I did that day. Upon getting handed the controls, I of course started asking everyone and everything that could breathe and or walk if it could sign my petition. This of course eventually led me to asking this fat-ass cop if he would sign my petition. He said no, and of course, like any reasonable adult, I threatened his family.
Are you going to sign this, or will it be your surviving family members?
That's it.
He goes hostile, but I made the weird decision to let him arrest me to see what happens. I won't lie to you, it took me a while to figure out what the fuck I was supposed to do. Eventually a cop got close enough that I could kick him, and then that didn't exactly work out in my favor. Fucking door, I dare you. Open that fucking door, I dare you. I'm standing still. You can't fucking shoot me, I'm in the After a healthy dosing of police brutality, I eventually figured out that you're supposed to throw a match at the sprinkler system so the cell doors open. Oh, son of a bitch! Open that cell door, pussy! As I mentioned on Monday, I actually already played through the police office, so I kinda already knew where to go. I beelined straight to the locker room, put on the police uniform, gave myself a couple of weapons, and, cleared the building. After clearing my name with the law, I immediately went back to petition signing. Shenanigans ensue, and I eventually find myself stumbling into the library. Upon entering, the first thing I see were more peaceful protesters, but I already know how this story ends, so I decided to be a good Samaritan and do the CIA's job for them. I eventually found myself in the book return area, and after damn near soft-locking myself, I eventually cut down the line and proceeded to try to turn in my book, which was then cut short by local law enforcement.
I said get down!
One side.
Oops. Guess I better find the drop.
I dropped the library book into the drop box and quickly realized that the protesters were not all dead. They lit the library on fire. I had to firefight my way out of there. All was good. On to the next chore. Next up on the chore list was meeting none other but the man, the myth, and the unheard legend, Gary Coleman. After a few more shenanigans with the petition, and realizing me and Lines don't get along, shenanigans ensue and I eventually get Gary Coleman's autograph. After leaving local law enforcement to deal with Kevin Hart's older brother, I make my way to the church for my last and final chore. And I'll mention I was saving the last signature on my petition for the priest to sign. I eventually do figure out how to get to the church, give this priest a helpful donation of lead. I eventually got myself into the confession booth. I give a mediocre confession, and then I quickly realize that the church is under attack by outdated stereotypes. I damn near fight through the whole horde and make it almost all the way out. And then my fucking game crashes. I was forced to play Tuesday all over again. I didn't really record it. I just recorded me getting more signatures. But lesson learned. Games made in 2003 aren't exactly stable. After that, it was on to the next day. And this is where the rose-tinted glasses come off. Because you quickly learn there's a reason most YouTubers don't play past Tuesday. Wednesday was pretty simple. I had to do 3 things. Get a Christmas tree, vote, piss on my dad. Pause. I quickly made my way to the forest, where I proceeded to get jumped by some rednecks for having a bigger tree. And while I was looking for the voting booth for my next chore, I accidentally stumbled on this man who was touching his meat in a certain type of way. Pause. Then got jumped by everyone in the immediate area. After ruining the lives of the people of the present, I proceed to go upstairs to the voting booth, where I proceed to ruin the people's lives of the future by voting blindly. After that, all that was left was to R. Kelly my good old dad. I make my way over to the cemetery, find good old dad's grave, and proceed to get jumped by a bunch of rednecks. I then wake up in a wooden chest, grab a shovel, and proceed to physically assault my sexual assaulters. Find a mirror, my character realizes he's in a gimp suit, and proceeds to get angry. That's just an average Wednesday for your boy. I'm then given a new chore, a surprise chore. I'm told to go pick up some laundry. So after a couple of failed escape attempts, and forced to watch the same cutscene a couple of times over, my bare ass eventually makes it out of the redneck's lair. While walking out of the mall and towards the laundromat, I get bullied on the street by random passerbys. Apparently being a proud gimp isn't very welcomed in this state. Some NPCs did not react to the gimp suit very well. There was this lady getting pat-down searched, then she stopped mid-animation to giggle, which pissed off the cop that was pat-down searching her. Then I proceeded to watch this lady run from the fucking cops in fear for her life because she giggled too hard. And when she's eventually caught, this exchange happens. Why am I pointing at? What did I do?
The Pride Parade was last week.
Why are your guns drawn? Why are your guns drawn? Please put the fucking guns down. Jesus fucking Christ, I'm a man and a gimp. Is it really that bad? Oh my fucking god.
Tan, I've got this urgent for you.
What? What did I do? What did I do? What the fuck is happening? I make it to the laundromat, try to pick up my laundry, and of course, once again, my plans are foiled by local law enforcement. Sorry for doing my fucking chores, Arizona police. Take my laundry out the shopkeeper's corpse, and proceed to head home. On Thursday, my chores were pay my ticket, get steaks, get napalm, get crotchy. Pause. First I pay my ticket, I make my way over to the police station, and I figured I wasn't really in the mood for a gunfight. So I just honest to God paid my ticket and took the easy way out. After a quick scuffle with the military, I then make it to the steak shop, and upon realizing there's no cashier, my character, of course being a walking representation of the Second Amendment, decides to go behind the counter and into the back. Turns out most of the steaks weren't cow, and the butchers aren't happy that you found out. Go figure. After fighting through all the butcher people, you eventually find the one actual cow in the butcher shop, and you take his meat. Pause. And as you're trying to leave, the SWAT team bust in, and go figure, mistake you for one of the butchers. There's no Tobey Maguire out of this one. And I'd like to put emphasis on this. Some of them were cops, but this was mainly SWAT. And SWAT guys are fucking hard to take down. Thank God this is pretty much the only time they ever show up, because it would be a nightmare otherwise. Even after beating the whole game, these are easily the hardest enemies in the game from what I remember. I eventually fought my way through though, and got to the next chore. After that, I had a pretty peaceful walk to the napalm factory. Upon getting there, I realized I did not care for yet another gunfight. I decided to pay the $300 and pay for the napalm legit. After trying to follow the lamest instructions in history, I eventually made my way all the way to the back of the factory with no trouble at all, grabbing my new napalm launcher. Of course, the factory explodes, cause why wouldn't it? And I sneak through the vents and straight into the lamest parkour section of all time. And right after I beat it, my fucking game crashed. Fucking insane if you think I'm doing that again. You can't. Okay. I'm gonna go piss up here. After that, I made my way to the mall for my final chore of the day. A penis-shaped action figure. There's not much to say about this one, it's just another run and gun section. I do have to note is that inside the mall I found a double-barreled shotgun and holy shit, is that thing overpowered. So yeah, I cleared through it real fast, got the toy, but the only difference between this and other run and gun sections is this one had a boss fight at the end. After you try to leave the back of the store, you're faced with Karachi, and you have to fight him on a 1v1. After realizing bullets won't work, and that there's a gimmick to damaging him, I decided I had the better gimmick, the good old-fashioned Joestar technique. I then made my way home, and started the next day. And finally, it was Friday, the last time I'll ever have fun playing this game. After getting my list of chores like picking up an alternator, going to Uncle Dave's birthday party, and picking up a package, I walked about 6 steps to my house and got a surprise chore. To the surprise of probably absolutely no one, my character somehow caught gonorrhea. And after spending this long in game getting to know the man, I'm surprised that's the only thing he has. I make a pip stock at the clinic, I showed the nurses my pee-pee, they say I have gonorrhea, and then I go pee on a robot. The robot throws a fucking temper tantrum because I peed on it, then throws pills at me. After the quick pit stop, the first thing up on my list was picking up the alternator. I make my way to the junkyard, and after a civil dispute with the owner, I eventually get my alternator. Of course, Postal doing as Postal does, it closes out the route I originally took and makes me take the long route. Sadly, it wasn't well secured, and I knew how to damage boost, so I rocket jumped the cute little wall barrier they made, and I skipped the entire section. Next up on my list was going to Uncle Dave's birthday party. Upon making it to the compound, I quickly realized my Uncle Dave was suffering every American suffers through at least once, dealing with the fucking ATF. Of course, my character being the walking Second Amendment, me and these officers did not exactly get along. I fought my way through the cops, into Dave's little hippie camp, and gave him his birthday present. We exchanged no words. After stealing my uncle's meth stash, and fighting through some more ATF, I went on to my next chore, which was to simply pick up a package. For some ungodly reason, the fucking Taliban had the postal office locked down. What they want to do with a post office in the middle of Arizona, no one knows. But holy fuck, was it a pain in the ass to get to this post office. After entrapping myself in the middle of this penis-shaped post office, I go and talk to the lady, and she tells me it's like $40 or something to pick up my package. At this point, I'm absolutely done with the fucking run and gun sections. I pay her $40, she yells at some kid to go get my package, and of course shenanigans ensue. The package was a bomb. Wow, who would have saw that coming? After a scuffle with the SWAT and the surprisingly lethal postal service people, I eventually escape the postal office and get my reward for making it all the way to Friday. A fucking newspaper clipping telling me that it's the apocalypse. Defeated, I walk home and get greeted to one last Simpsons joke.
The day I've had.
About friggin' time. Did you remember my rocky road?
After that crazy 5-day adventure, I don't even get to catch my breath because I'm immediately greeted with this cutscene.
Yep, looks like everything worked out pretty good in the end. Hey, champ?
Is it true you were the inspiration for Viagra?
As far as you know, babe. Oh man, it was just a horrible dream. Where the hell am I? And why does my medulla oblongata hurt?
Just relax.
I better still have both kidneys, Dr. Mangala.
You've suffered a terrible head injury. You barely survived your unfortunate firearms accident. I'll be back to check on you later.
Oh, get well cards. And I've only been here overnight. Let's see. Get well soon, P.S. We're repossessing your trailer, signed Acme Repossessors. We hope you'll soon be through this troubled time and back on the road to happiness and health. P.S. Unless you pay your outstanding license fees, Champ will be put to sleep tomorrow night. Love, the Pound. And last but not least, you should only die. I'm moving back in with Mother, signed your hateful wife. Well, at least the news isn't all bad.
Come back here with that!
Guess I'm gonna need to make some more money, but my printer's all out of ink. What's this? Top dollar paid for seminal research donations. See information desk for details. Okay.
And just like that, the weekend has officially started, starting with Saturday, of course. There's something to note, going into the weekends, they completely forgo the chore list and open sandbox-esque way of doing missions. From here on out, it's just some raunchy Half-Life 2 clone, where the only way to go is forward, and you just keep walking forward until you beat the game. So to start off this crazy weekend, you wake up in a hospital with some head injury and a shit ton of stuff to do. After making a generous donation to the hospital, you introduce Gary Coleman to the butt end of your scissors. You escape the hospital through the sewers and wind up in some Chinese restaurant. Because your character really fucking wanted Chinese or something. I don't know. It's like a random stop for no reason. Upon entering the Chinese restaurant, your order is taken by a zombie. The zombie, upon remembering that he's paid minimum wage, has a freak out and him and his homies jump you and all the people in the store. But to the dismay of the zombies, you of course have their greatest weakness, a pair of working eyes and a pair of working legs. After dismantling exactly 20 zombies, this fat guy comes up to you and asks you to be a cow farmer? I don't even know. You fight PETA, and you learn that sledgehammers are a zombie's weakness. After cow farming super well, you're then upgraded to a fucking pigeon farmer. But wait, then they play this cutscene.
I told you no. What the hell you think this is? Friggin' bullshit. What do you got, Steve? Hold on.
Proposal for the pigeon mission.
Proposal for the pigeon mission? We ain't got no budget for pigeon missions. The fuck, are you kidding me?
Vince, the kids. Gotta think of the kids.
Look at the quality of this video. You want enough? Hold on, I said. Who is this? Get on fucking line. You want money too? Fuck you too.
After the so-called pigeon level, you're then called up by your old boss and asked to do a job for a company that you no longer work for because said boss fucking fired you. You, of course, agree to this because no regrets or something, I don't know. You run inside this unnamed game publisher studio, do your best recreation of the Combine shooting, and then you fight the CEO. After murdering the CEO in cold blood, you then go back to your old job and party with your boss until the sun comes up. You wake up Sunday morning, and your boss, first thing he does when you wake up is ask you to defend his house from zombies. So, of course, being the good ex-employee that isn't on payroll anymore, you help the guy defend his house. After a really lame and really easy action sequence, you're asked to go bomb the building of the publishing company. Even though no one even works there anymore because you fucking murdered everyone. So they're bombing an empty building. You're then asked by a clothes merchant if you're willing to hunt elephants with him in trade for fresh clothes and a ride into town. You agree, you go elephant hunting, and then he doesn't even take you back to town. Instead of saving your dog, who, by the way, is about to get put down, you, of course, make your happy ass all the way over to Al-Qaeda's base of operations. Because you're looking for bombs or fucking something, I don't know. You then quote-unquote play is a strong term there. I crashed a lot during this section. I got to the point where I was essentially saving every 30 seconds so I wouldn't lose my progress. Eventually I make it through their entire base, realize they have fuck all worth of weapons. Then the American military intervene and arrest you as a terrorist. You're then taken into the military base where you're held prisoner and, I assume, about to get tried as a war criminal. Of course, we've learned before that in order to get a cell door open, you need to start a fire. So you give your foreign Al-Qaeda friend a piece of 5 gum and he promptly bursts into flames. All the cell doors open and you and your Al-Qaeda friends fight through the US military trying to get out. After probably what felt like the longest and most boring sections in the game, I eventually got through the entire military base. You escape, go back to unnamed publisher, put a tactical nuke on what's already a destroyed building, so kind of pointless really. And after all of that, after 2 days have passed, you finally remember that you need to get your dog out of the pound. You make it to the pound, fight a couple of dogs in gimp suits. If you have the machete, this is literally the easiest section in the entire game. You get surrounded by gimp dogs. Champ, who is for some reason not in a fucking cage, someone really failed there, bursts through a window and murders like 8 dogs. And then you proclaim that he saved your life. You then make your way to this random bridge, because I assume you're escaping from the nuke. Fighting through military and zombies, you eventually make it all the way to the other side of the bridge, where you finally face the final boss of the game. Which, when you first look at him, you'd think it'd be, oh, it's Satan, and you're such a bad person, you're gonna fight Satan for his throne. Nope, it's a developer self-insert. So he sits there, screams profanities at you, you kinda just shoot him. You shoot his balls above his head, then you shoot him. Of course, you have to save every 30 seconds because the game's still crashing every 30 seconds because this is the most unoptimized piece of shit I've ever played. You finally murder the big bastard, and then you go the fuck home. Or technically, the home's hitched to the back of the car. Yeah, I'm not going to bother. Listen, that's the entire game. Last thing I have to know is some New Game Plus stuff. They give you a list of cheats. The cheats are cool. They're really funny. You can wear a gimp suit again. That's awesome. That's always good to see. The main character calls you a sissy for activating your hard-earned cheats for whatever reason. And yeah, that's pretty much Postal 2, and I am not playing Paradise Lost. Alright, so let's get into what I did not like about the game. To start off, the story is not really there. The story in Postal 2 is kind of like a Family Guy episode. It's there, it's just not the focus, I guess. The story's all over the place, sometimes not even there. Constant fourth wall breaks, and like with the pigeon mission, they just didn't even fucking bother. But that's okay. This isn't really a story game. You don't really play it for the story. You play it for the humor and you play it for the action. Which brings me to my second problem. The gameplay got really repetitive, really fast. The first 2 or 3 days, it was fine. But every single time, you'd go into a building, all the way to the back, grab something, have to fight all the way out. And I like that there were some options, like you can pay to skip the portion of it or the chore altogether. But that's just really what it boiled down to constantly. They would trap you into a building and then force you into a fight. Over and over again. That's why Tuesday is one of the best days, because that's not what you do on Tuesday. You go and start your own fights, like a man. You don't have to help Gary Coleman, but you can. It's an optional fight. Hell, you can even help the police and kill Gary Coleman himself. The first 2 days were great because it felt more like a sandbox with optional fights and different routes around those fights than just, oh, I went into a building, did something, now I'm stuck in a run and gun section. And that's when the game was at its peak, is when it offered multiple routes to do something. Which brings me to my biggest problem with the game, the weekend. The 2 final days, Saturday and Sunday. The first 5 days didn't hide the fact that they didn't really have a story. They had a slight story, and it was more of a gag than it was an actual cohesive story. It was you doing a chore list in the most insane, batshit way possible, to then go home and get bitched at by your wife. That's the entire joke. You were free to do the chores in however order you wanted. The map was open to explore. Hell, you didn't even have to do the chores if you wanted to. You could have just sat there and caused chaos amongst the people for how long you wanted. But on Saturday and Sunday, they decided to try to actually tell a story. And I assume when they broke off from their publisher, they took their fucking writers with them. Because, wow. The weekend's entire plot is just a hit piece on, I assume, the game dev's old publisher. And the entire joke is that they don't like their old publisher and they're sending Postal Guide to fuck them up. It's like being at recess in first grade and you tell some random ass kid that your dad's gonna beat his punk ass. Hell, the story would have been just fine, but they got rid of the chore list. Instead of having you decide what you want to do when you want to do it, they put you on a track and they said, this is what you're going to do and this is the order you're going to do it in. I was essentially playing a really raunchy Half-Life. And in Half-Life it's fine because the gunplay has been refined, but here the gunplay is very crude, which the gunplay being crude was fine when it was still a sandbox. But when you make the gunplay take center stage instead of everything else that Postal had to offer, it starts showing the cracks, and the cracks get really fucking big and annoying. If you had tracer rounds turned on in the settings, sometimes you would use the machine gun, and then it would not load in the tracer rounds, which is fine if the trace doesn't load. I just kinda had it on so I could see where my bullets were going and I could understand the recoil. But apparently if those traces don't load, the game shits a brick and fucking crashes. I could hardly go 2 minutes playing this game without it crashing in some way, shape, or form. By the time I hit the weekend, I spent more time looking at my OBS menu than I did the actual game, because the game could barely run for more than 2 minutes. I constantly found myself saving after every little progression, because I would either die to some horse shit, or I would crash. This type of gameplay formula is fun in Half-Life because they refined their gunplay. But when a guy can match the fire rate of a machine gun with a rocket launcher, that is not fun. So to wrap it up, when the game was a sandbox during the first 5 days, that goofy, wacky gunplay, it was just fine. It's what made the game funny, it's what made the game enjoyable. It wasn't the highlight of the game, and it could be avoided entirely if it really wasn't that serviceable. But when they forced it to take center stage, and you're forced to use it, even though it isn't refined and it doesn't work very well, it gets really frustrating really fast. But I'm done talking about what I didn't like about the game. Let's go over what I did enjoy about the game. Now, what I did enjoy was the weapon spread. I love it when games have a huge weapon spread. You're allowed to just take a fight however you want. Although it makes me sad that there are some guns I'll never use, I really enjoy the fact that I have an option to tackle a situation however I want. Hell, when I loaded up a new game and gave myself all the weapons, I realized there was 2 weapons I never collected. I never grabbed the shears, and I never grabbed the chainsaw, and I never got the chance to use the scrotum grenades. And there were some weapons that were objectively bad, like the rotting cow head. When enemies used them, it made it really fun. They cut off areas and whatnot, and prevented me going through certain ways, which some people find annoying, but I find it really enjoyable. It switches things up, and it makes me have to think over a situation before I hop into it. Speaking of NPCs, I absolutely love the AI in the game. It is phenomenal. They really outdone themselves. I honestly can't tell if the AI is bad or super fucking good. The AI is very true to the style of the game, which is absurdity. The AI acts in absurd ways. I remember I was chilling, walking down the street on one of the mission days, and I heard music coming from a building. I went in and discovered it was a whole gay bar. If you played through the whole story like some robot, you would have never known it is here, but it's here anyways, and I really enjoy that. You'll be walking down the street, you'll hear NPCs get into disagreements with each other that leads them to drawing guns on each other. You will see people on the road just get arrested for no fucking reason, and then start resisting police and then get shot. And then the police will get angry that you watch them do police brutality and then start shooting you. A bad AI in any other game would completely break immersion, but here, for some reason, I have never been more immersed. Which brings me to my final point, the style of the game. Oh my gosh. This game's hilarious, it's absurd. The missions are genuinely really fun, usually really fun. Usually. I will say this, it's a pretty old game. There's some really outdated stereotypes, some very racy takes, and it being old doesn't exactly excuse that. But it has a wonderful cast of characters. It's really funny. The main character, dude, he's fucking rad. He says the most absurd shit out of everyone in this fucking game.
Butt sauce.
Most of the situations are absurd and funny. There's random areas that just don't need to exist story-wise, but they're just there to build up the world. There's so much thought and detail put into the sandbox part of the game. It's amazing, and it makes it so much more enjoyable. There's working vendors, different reactions to different scenarios, animals, a forest. There's so many places to explore. You don't even get to explore a lot of the places. There's like 4 areas in the game that don't have a mission connected to them, but they have an entire loading screen, an entire area that you can just sit there and explore. They'll never add anything to the game. And if they were ever removed from the game, it really wouldn't change anything. But it's the fact that they're there is absolutely amazing. If I had to put this game on a tier list, I would give it a strong C, maybe a B. The first 5 days of the game are amazing, even though some of them had their weak points. Overall, they were really, really fun. What really brings this game down from being an A, S maybe, is the weekend. Oh my god, the weekend is so fucking bad. That alone brings it down a whole tier, maybe 2. The weekend's pretty unfucking forgivable, and on top of all the crashing and bugs, it's hard to raise it anything, like even justifying a B is rough. And you can't say the weekend's an optional part of the game, because you don't get a true ending until you beat Sunday. But to put it out of 10, I'd give it an Anthony Fantano strong 7. The game's only $10, that's a pretty good price tag if you ask me. Actually, as of recording this, it's on sale for like $1, and it constantly does go on sale for like $1. That's when I picked it up personally. Super worth checking out. I don't think it's worth finishing though. It's just that one-time thing that you'd pick up and play whenever you're bored. It also has multiplayer, so you can grab a friend, just dick around and kick the shit out of some random pedestrian. That's pretty much all I have left to say. Thank you for watching. I'm going to try to keep the bucket list update weekly. There are some games that are really hard to beat within a week, but that's the consistency I kind of want. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. I guess I'll see you later, hopefully.